Chosen One, you didn't stumble upon this message by accident. The universe orchestrated this moment because you are one of the most remarkable souls to ever coexist with humanity, and it's time you understood exactly what that means. The downloads you've been receiving through seemingly random shows, conversations, and synchronicities weren't entertainment or coincidence. They were systematic revelations preparing you for the cosmic truth that's about to shatter every limitation you've ever accepted about yourself. When that Norse mythology adaptation played across your screen, showing gods vulnerable and giants as the real power players, something clicked deeper than entertainment. Those weren't just fictional characters battling for cosmic dominance. Those were mirrors reflecting a war that's been raging since the beginning of time. A war where beings of light face off against systems of control, where the balance tips back and forth between those who hoard power and those who were born to redistribute it. The giants in those ancient stories, they never disappeared. They just learned to wear different uniforms, carry different titles, speak in corporate language instead of guttural roars. But their essence remains the same. Massive, domineering forces that seek to keep extraordinary souls like yours believing they're ordinary. The download started young, that inexplicable knowing that made teachers uncomfortable, that made family gatherings feel like performances where everyone was playing roles except you. While other children absorbed fairy tales as fantasy, something in your cellular memory recognized them as historical documents. When playground bullies targeted you with that particular venom reserved for threats they couldn't name, your spirit already understood what your mind wouldn't grasp for years. They sensed something in you that their lower vibrational existence couldn't tolerate. The very frequency of your being disrupted their comfortable unconsciousness, and rather than face their own spiritual poverty, they chose to attack the mirror reflecting their limitations back to them. Those early tormentors never realized they weren't just picking on a weird kid. They were poking at a sleeping dragon, testing the patience of something that would one day possess the ability to shatter their entire worldview with a single word. The universe doesn't create beings like you without purpose, and that purpose has nothing to do with fitting in or making others comfortable. Every slight, every dismissal, every attempt to make you feel less than magnificent was cosmic fuel feeding a fire that would eventually consume everything false in its path. The universe doesn't waste experiences on chosen ones. Each seeming setback was advanced spiritual conditioning, preparing your consciousness for responsibilities that ordinary souls couldn't handle. While they were learning to color inside the lines, you were learning to see beyond the boundaries that others mistake for reality. The loneliness you felt isn't evidence of something wrong with you. It's evidence of something extraordinary about your mission. But that loneliness served another purpose, one that's about to become crystal clear. It was isolation training, preparing you for the inevitable moment when you'd have to stand alone against forces that most people can't even perceive. Prophets have always walked slightly apart from the crowds they're destined to guide, not by choice but by necessity. Your discomfort in casual social situations, that exhaustion that comes from small talk and surface-level connections, that persistent feeling of being an alien observer in human gatherings, these aren't personality flaws to overcome. These are spiritual gifts protecting your energy from contamination by lower vibrational frequencies. The selection process isn't random, and it isn't comfortable. The universe identified you before your first breath, marked you before your first heartbeat, and began your training before you could walk. Every experience that felt like punishment was actually preparation. Every moment of feeling misunderstood was building your immunity to peer pressure. Every instance of standing alone was strengthening your ability to stand for something greater than popular opinion. The entities that whisper guidance during your quiet moments. Yes, you've heard them. They're not figments of an overactive imagination. They're members of your cosmic support team, beings whose existence spans eons and whose interest in your development reveals the magnitude of what's at stake. The sudden knowing that arrives without research or study, the way synchronicities arrange themselves around your path like breadcrumbs leading toward destiny, the prophetic dreams that later manifest in your waking reality. These phenomena place you in a category that transcends traditional religious hierarchies. Church leaders study scripture about the gifts you naturally embody. Spiritual teachers write books about the consciousness you access without effort. The ranking system they've created for their earthly institutions means nothing when your spirit reports directly to cosmic headquarters, when your downloads come straight from source frequency rather than filtered through human interpretation. This direct connection explains something that's probably been bothering you for years: why organized religion feels like a costume that doesn't fit, why their explanations feel incomplete, why their authorities seem to be missing something fundamental about the very subjects they claim to teach. But this connection comes with a price that's about to become apparent. The clearer your spiritual sight becomes, the more obvious the deception around you grows. The more authentic power you embody, the more threatened the false power structures become. The deeper your connection to divine frequency, the more aggressive the attempts to disconnect you become. This isn't paranoia. This is the natural response of a dying paradigm to the presence of its replacement. False prophets and energy vampires recoil from your presence like vampires from sunlight, because they've built entire empires on diluted spiritual truth, charging admission to temples you can construct in consciousness without their permission. Their carefully crafted personas crumble when genuine divinity enters the room, when someone appears who embodies the very power they've only managed to imitate. They'll try to recruit you first. Oh, how they'll try to recruit you. They'll seduce you with promises of belonging, attempt to convince you that your gifts need their validation or their platform to have meaning. This is the trap that has ensnared countless awakened souls throughout history, the belief that divine authority requires human approval. When recruitment fails, they'll try destruction. They'll mobilize their followers, weaponize their influence, and attempt to isolate you from anyone who might recognize your true nature. They'll paint you as dangerous, delusional, or disturbed, because your existence threatens the very foundation of their artificial authority. You weren't created to need their approval. Recognition from the masses was never part of your contract. The applause you're meant to receive resonates at frequencies most ears cannot detect. Your validation comes from realms beyond this one, from beings whose existence spans millennia rather than decades. When you align with your true purpose, when you stop apologizing for the magnitude of your presence and start wielding it consciously, the universe itself stands up and applauds. The nervous energy people feel around you, their inability to maintain eye contact for extended periods, the way conversations shift when you enter spaces, these reactions aren't coincidental, and they're accelerating. Your presence functions as a spiritual lie detector that exposes illusions others have spent lifetimes constructing. Their discomfort isn't about anything you're doing wrong. Their discomfort is about everything they're doing wrong being reflected back to them through the mirror of your authentic being. You make dishonesty impossible to maintain, pretense exhausting to perform, and spiritual mediocrity painful to endure. This is why they need groups to feel brave enough to challenge you. Individually, they recognize the futility of attempting to diminish what cannot be diminished. But in groups, their combined desperation creates enough noise to temporarily drown out their inner knowing that they're confronting something far beyond their comprehension. Like hyenas circling a lion, they mistake numbers for strength, volume for authority. They fail to understand that divine protection operates according to laws that render their earthly strategies irrelevant. Every attack they launch returns to them multiplied. Every arrow they shoot at your light bounces back to illuminate their own darkness. The very weapons they think will destroy you become the instruments of their own downfall. The battles you've survived weren't random misfortunes. The betrayals that nearly broke you weren't evidence of divine abandonment. The moments when giving up seemed like the only rational choice weren't signs of weakness. They were initiations, spiritual trials designed to forge your character into something capable of handling the responsibility that's been waiting for you since before time began. Every dark night of the soul was actually a cosmic examination, testing whether your commitment to your mission could withstand the pressure that destroys weaker spirits. You passed tests you didn't even realize you were taking. You demonstrated resilience that impressed beings whose existence spans cosmic ages. You maintained your connection to source frequency when everything around you was designed to sever that connection. You held on to your truth when lies were more comfortable. You chose authenticity when conformity would have been easier. These weren't accidents. These were qualifications being earned, credentials being established, authority being authenticated. The testing phase is ending, but something far more intense is beginning. The preparation period is drawing to a close, and the activation sequence has started. The very fact that these words are finding their way to your consciousness right now signals a shift in your spiritual season. The downloads are becoming more frequent, more urgent, more specific. The synchronicities are accelerating, forming patterns too obvious to dismiss as coincidence. The dreams are becoming more vivid, more prophetic, more directly connected to your waking reality. These aren't random phenomena. They're graduation ceremonies marking your transition from student to master, from potential to manifestation, from hidden to revealed. The Cosmic University has been training you in advanced consciousness, while others are still learning basic spiritual arithmetic. Your final examinations are complete. Your degree in divine authority has been conferred. Your commission papers are being signed by beings whose names would make angels tremble with reverence. The world teeters on the edge of transformation, and souls like yours didn't incarnate at this moment by accident. The great awakening that mystics have prophesied for millennia isn't some distant future event. It's happening now through beings who refuse to settle for spiritual mediocrity, who maintain their connection to divine frequency despite every earthly pressure to conform to lower vibrations. Your individual awakening creates ripples that awaken others. Your refusal to dim your light gives others permission to shine. Your courage to stand in your truth becomes the catalyst for collective liberation. But the mechanics of this process are more intricate than you might imagine. Every person you influence influences others. Every consciousness you elevate elevates others. Every frequency you raise raises others. The mathematical progression is exponential, not linear. One awakened soul like you doesn't just save themselves. They become a lighthouse guiding thousands from the darkness. But lighthouses don't apologize for their brightness, don't dim their beams to avoid hurting the eyes of those who prefer darkness, and don't compromise their function to accommodate those who profit from keeping others lost at sea. The giants of this age sense their time ending. The modern power structures that have convinced humanity to worship at altars of limitation recognize that beings like you represent their greatest threat, not because you oppose them with their own weapons of force and manipulation, but because you embody a frequency that makes their entire paradigm obsolete. Light doesn't fight darkness, it simply makes darkness impossible to maintain. Their desperation is becoming more obvious, their control mechanisms more transparent, their illusions easier to see through. They're pulling out all the stops, mobilizing every resource, deploying every weapon in their arsenal, because they know that once enough souls like you step fully into their power, the game is over. Their reign of deception ends not with violent revolution, but with the simple presence of authentic truth. This is why your words carry supernatural weight when you speak from authentic conviction. This is why your presence shifts atmospheres without effort. This is why people either love or hate you with intensities that seem disproportionate to your actual interactions with them. You represent the possibility they've convinced themselves doesn't exist, potential they've taught themselves to fear, power they've been conditioned to surrender to external authorities. The time for hiding behind false humility is over. The time for apologizing for your gifts is finished. The time for seeking permission from those you came to guide has ended. Your greatness isn't something you achieve, it's something you remember, something you accept, something you allow to flow through you without restriction or apology. The universe invested too much in your development to watch you waste it on self-doubt or people-pleasing. But accepting your greatness comes with a responsibility that most people couldn't handle. When you step into your full authority, you become accountable for how you use it. When you access your complete power, you become responsible for its impact. When you embrace your true identity, you become liable for its consequences. This is why the preparation phase was so extensive, so thorough, so seemingly brutal. The universe needed to know that you could be trusted with capabilities that could reshape reality itself. Every morning when you wake up now, you're stepping onto a battlefield where consciousness and unconsciousness wage war for the soul of humanity. Every choice you make either advances the light or enables the darkness. Every time you honor your intuition over convention, every time you speak truth despite pressure to conform, every time you maintain your spiritual frequency despite others' attempts to drag you into lower vibrational dramas, you're casting votes for the world you want to live in. The prophecies spoke of this time, of beings who would arise when darkness seemed overwhelming, who would carry light codes capable of transforming entire civilizations. The ancient texts described souls who would incarnate with memories intact, who would recognize their missions without extensive teaching, who would embody divine authority without needing human validation. Those prophecies were about beings exactly like you, chosen one. The signs pointing toward your identity have been accumulating your entire life. The breadcrumbs the universe dropped in your path through movies, conversations, and synchronicities weren't random entertainment. They were systematic revelation, progressive disclosure, graduated awakening, designed to prepare you for this moment of full recognition. The evidence of your extraordinary nature grows stronger with each passing day. The downloads intensify, the synchronicities multiply, the dreams become more prophetic, the knowing becomes more certain, the protection becomes more obvious, the power becomes more accessible. These aren't coincidences, they're confirmations that your time of preparation is complete and your time of activation has begun. So when people try to make you feel like you're too much, remember that they're actually too little to comprehend your magnitude. When they attempt to convince you that your gifts are imagination or delusion, remember that their spiritual poverty makes them incapable of recognizing authentic wealth. When they project their limitations onto your unlimited potential, remember that mirrors only reflect what's placed in front of them. Now, the following is a message meant exclusively for the chosen. If you are compromised by archonic forces, this is not meant for you. And by the spiritual authority conferred to us by the secret chiefs of the Obsidian Inner Order, we grant you license to depart. If not, steel yourself and listen intently, for you shall be redeemed even as we are redeemed. The Obsidian Inner Order is not a program, it's not a course, it's not some feel-good spiritual retreat. We don't sell answers, we remember together, we teach psychic self-defense, real energetic shielding against entities, implants and interference. We restore manifestation as it was meant to be, raw, immediate and exact. Every week we gather in secret, not to worship but to awaken, to speak what can't be said anywhere else, to deprogram the matrix layer by layer. You'll know if you're meant to be there, you'll feel it in your bones. The chosen meet every week on Zoom. Why aren't you with us yet? Got Gnosis? Join the Obsidian Inner Order, link in the description. The awakening process isn't just about recognizing your power, it's about understanding why you were equipped with abilities that seem to transcend normal human limitations. The capacity to read energies instantly, to sense truth beneath layers of deception, to predict outcomes before they manifest. These aren't random gifts scattered carelessly by a benevolent universe. They're precision instruments designed for a specific purpose that's about to become devastatingly clear. The electromagnetic field around your being operates differently than others. Scientists would call it bioelectricity, mystics would call it aura, but the entities guiding your development know it as something far more significant, a living force field that disrupts artificial constructs and exposes hidden agendas. When you focus attention on someone, their cellular structure responds whether they consciously recognize it or not. When you speak from the depths of your authentic truth, reality itself shifts to align with your words. This is why conversations halt when you approach certain groups. This is why some people become nervous in your presence without understanding why. This is why others feel compelled to confess things to you that they've never told another soul. Your energy field functions as a cosmic polygraph test that makes deception physically uncomfortable for those attempting to maintain false personas in your vicinity. The dreams have been intensifying, not just the prophetic ones that later manifest in your waking reality, but the ones where you're receiving direct instruction from beings whose appearance defies earthly description. The training sessions are conducted while your physical body rests, where you practice abilities that your conscious mind doesn't yet remember possessing. The meetings in dimensions that exist parallel to this one, where strategies are discussed and assignments are distributed among souls carrying similar frequencies. These nocturnal experiences aren't fantasies generated by an overactive subconscious. They're actual events occurring in realms where consciousness operates according to different laws than physical reality. Your spirit has been attending graduate school in cosmic universities while your body sleeps, earning credentials in disciplines that don't exist in earthly institutions. Advanced courses in energy manipulation, intensive training in consciousness expansion, specialized seminars in reality reconstruction. These subjects comprise the curriculum for beings whose mission requires capabilities beyond normal human parameters. The memory fragments that surface during meditation, the sudden flashes of knowledge about civilizations that supposedly never existed, the inexplicable familiarity with technologies that haven't been invented yet. These episodes reveal the scope of your preparation. Your consciousness has been downloading information from multiple timelines, accessing wisdom from futures that haven't occurred, and pasts that have been deliberately forgotten by those who prefer humanity to remain ignorant of its true potential. But knowledge without application remains theoretical, and your education is approaching its practical phase. The abilities you've been developing in dream states are beginning to bleed through into your waking consciousness. The protective barriers between dimensions are thinning for someone like you, allowing access to capabilities that have been dormant since your incarnation into this physical form. The cosmic training wheels are being removed, and the full magnitude of your operational capacity is preparing to come online. The resistance you've encountered throughout your life wasn't just random opposition. It was systematic testing designed to calibrate your responses to adversity. Every person who attempted to break your spirit was unknowingly participating in a cosmic stress test, measuring your ability to maintain integrity under pressure. Every institution that tried to force conformity was actually strengthening your immunity to collective hypnosis. Every moment when you felt completely alone was building your capacity to stand independent of external validation when the time comes to lead others away from deception. The entities orchestrating your development needed absolute certainty that you wouldn't compromise your mission for comfort, wouldn't trade your truth for acceptance, wouldn't surrender your power for security. They needed to know that when the moment arrives to choose between popular opinion and divine directive, you would choose correctly without hesitation. The extensive testing you've endured was their insurance policy against mission failure. But the testing phase revealed something that even your cosmic supervisors found remarkable: your capacity to maintain compassion for those who persecuted you, to hold love for those who misunderstood you, to feel empathy for those who feared what you represent. This emotional resilience wasn't expected, wasn't required, wasn't part of the original mission parameters, yet it became the quality that elevated your assignment from regional to global, from temporary to permanent, from significant to absolutely crucial. The ability to wield tremendous power while maintaining genuine love for those who oppose you. This combination creates a frequency that can transform opponents into allies, enemies into advocates, darkness into light, without violence or manipulation. This is why your presence doesn't just disturb artificial constructs, it offers healing to those brave enough to abandon their illusions and embrace authentic existence. The modern giants know this about you. They recognize that you represent their complete obsolescence, not through force but through the simple presence of a superior paradigm. Their empires are built on humanity's belief in limitation, scarcity, separation, and powerlessness. Your existence proves these beliefs false. Your very being demonstrates possibilities they've spent fortunes convincing people don't exist. This is why the attacks against beings like you have become more sophisticated, more personal, more psychological. They can't destroy you physically, because you're protected by forces they can't perceive, much less combat. They can't defeat you intellectually, because your knowledge comes from sources they can't access. They can't overcome you spiritually, because your connection operates through frequencies they can't jam. So they attack your emotions, your relationships, your sense of belonging. They isolate you from support systems, turn loved ones against you, make you question your own perceptions. They weaponize your compassion against you, exploit your desire for connection, manipulate your natural inclination to help others. They understand that beings of your caliber can only be defeated through willing surrender of your own power. But what they failed to calculate was the inevitability of your awakening. What they couldn't factor into their strategies was the moment when you would recognize the patterns, see through the manipulation, understand the game being played. What they didn't anticipate was your capacity to transform every weapon they used against you into tools for your own empowerment. The loneliness they imposed became self-reliance. The rejection they orchestrated became discernment. The attacks they launched became strength training. The isolation they created became immunity from collective delusion. Every strategy they employed to weaken you actually contributed to your development into something far more formidable than they ever imagined possible. The revelation of your true identity doesn't end with personal empowerment. It begins a phase of responsibility that extends far beyond individual liberation. The consciousness you carry, the frequency you embody, the power you wield, these aren't personal possessions to be hoarded or hidden. They're cosmic resources meant to be shared with others who are ready to receive them, distributed among those who are prepared to handle them responsibly. But distribution requires discernment. Not everyone who claims to want awakening is actually prepared for its demands. Not everyone who seeks power is ready for its responsibilities. Not everyone who desires transformation is willing to release what must be released to accommodate what's being offered. The ability to distinguish between genuine seekers and spiritual tourists becomes crucial when your words carry the weight to shatter someone's entire worldview or launch them into dimensions of existence they never imagined possible. The frequency you broadcast affects everyone within your sphere of influence, but the intensity of that effect depends on their receptivity to higher vibrational input. Those who resonate with your energy experience acceleration in their own awakening process, while those who resist it experience increasing discomfort until they either align or distance themselves from your presence. This natural sorting process ensures that you're surrounded by beings who can match your frequency rather than drain it. The relationships that have fallen away from your life weren't losses. They were necessary clearings, making space for connections that can support your evolution rather than hinder it. The people who couldn't handle your growth weren't failures on your part. They were demonstrations that not everyone is ready for the level of authenticity you embody. The loneliness you experienced during transition periods wasn't punishment, it was preparation for the profound connections awaiting you with other awakened souls. The same universe that whispered to you through that Norse mythology show, that downloaded wisdom through seemingly random encounters, that spoke to you through the language of synchronicity and dreams, is now speaking directly through these words. The breadcrumbs have led you here, to this moment of recognition, to this crossroads where you choose between playing small to make others comfortable or stepping fully into the authority that's been yours since before time began. But this moment isn't just about your personal decision, it's about the collective tipping point that your choice will help determine. Every soul who awakens to their true nature contributes to a critical mass that will eventually transform the entire planetary consciousness. Your individual empowerment becomes part of a collective awakening that will reshape reality for everyone, whether they participate consciously or not. The stakes couldn't be higher. The timeline couldn't be more crucial. The need couldn't be more urgent. The preparation couldn't be more complete. Your journey has been preparing you for this moment of recognition, this crossroads where you choose between playing small to make others comfortable or stepping fully into the authority that's been yours since before time began. The universe isn't asking for your permission anymore. The cosmic clock has struck midnight on the age of hiding. Your time is now, chosen one. Your mission is active. Your greatness is no longer optional. It's inevitable.